All right, so that was the end of the credits. I'm gonna let you all know here that I think I know how to operate technology, but as you've seen in the documentary, sometimes it doesn't go right. So I'm gonna pull it over here and see if we see me and Esteban. Oh, and I hear me a second time. I can fix that. Hold on. There we go.
You good? You
yeah,
good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good now.
You all right there?
I had to fix one thing so I didn't hear myself a second time. How you doing?
Hanging in there. How about yourself?
Good. I just watched that documentary, which I honestly probably haven't watched I definitely haven't watched it in full since it premiered last year.
Yeah.
Because I got real tired of watching that footage while editing it.
yeah, that's what people like. That's what people don't realize. It's like, it's a great moment when it premieres and then everyone's sitting together and they love it, and you're like, I'm so glad for this thing to be over.
Oh no, I was writing out my Christmas cards and stuff, and I included a copy of the movie to my mom, who still hasn't seen it.
Nice.
And in the letter I says, I know you know that as a kid I always wanted to make a movie. Well, I've included a copy of it. I don't ever want to make another movie. was how
Lesson learned.
Yeah. But for those who don't know, here, everybody in the chat, I'm here with Esteban, the Besteban, who was the videographer for Money Making Game. Do you want to let people know how you kind of came and got to be involved with it?
So actually, that's kind of the funny story. I want to know from you how you found me.
You were doing the GDQ reels at the end of GDQ, and I was like, well, I need somebody who knows what a charity marathon is and does documentary stuff, and there you were. And then I looked into some of your other work, and I was like, he seems to know what he's doing. So
yeah, I mean, I'm really good at pretending I know what I'm doing, so I'm glad I fooled you and everybody else.
I mean, that's what we do at Zeldathon. For the most part, we all pretend.
But yeah, so I do a lot of work in primarily esports, primarily with fighting games, with videography and documentaries. But I also do, if you ever watch Games Done Quick, at the end of their stream, they have like a finale video where we kind of like recap the week, and there's like a lot of emotional interviews, and it's like, yay, speedrunning. So like you mentioned, that's pretty much how you found me, and that's kind of how I kind of stepped out of my usual wheelhouse and kind of got into bigger mainstream stuff. So one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden I got a DM from a certain MC. I'm like, hey, you want to come film this charity thing? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
I think the first thing I messaged you was like, hey, I kind of want to do a Zeldathon documentary, but I have no I didn't say I have no money. I said, but first we need to make a Kickstarter promo. So do you want to come for like a couple days, one marathon, and shoot enough stuff that we can try to convince people to back a Kickstarter?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. And I was like, yeah, cool, I'm game. Let's why not? Let's see what happens.
And then the Kickstarter happened, and it was successful, and then we paid most of it to you, which is good because you did an amazing job and you deserved it.
Thank you.
So do you remember the first marathon you came to? I don't remember which one it was.
Everything is a blur.
Yeah.
Everything is a blur. Was it Champions? I think it was Champions, because I think it was the first time that Breath of the Wild was being played.
No, that was Wild. So, but it was a year afterwards. So.
Okay, so it was the second time. It was relatively close to when that game was released.
Right.
I think that was the first one, and I went in not knowing what I was getting into.
No, not at all.
And I was very surprised because, like, again, like we mentioned before, like the Games Done Quick stuff is stuff I was used to. Yeah. So when I walked in, and I was expecting like, a small audience, maybe a stage or whatever, like I was really confused how people were going to play Zelda for like 7 days straight. I was like, it's only like 7 games, right? Like it's only a couple games, right? How are they going to do this? And then I quickly learned that it was not a speed gaming marathon.
No, we could probably do all the Zelda games in like under 48 hours if we had good runners for everything.
Yeah. I was like, oh, they're literally just gonna play the games. Okay, cool. That's fine with me.
Let's gonna hang out. Yeah.
But yeah. I walked in and kind of got to meet. Nobody really talked to me the first marathon. I think I scared everybody.
Yeah. We're trying to be better about that, about not scaring people.
But that was fine because I got to kind of get a better feel for like the environment, kind of get a better feel of like how the day-to-day is, how everything's structured out. Why is there a wrestling match happening in the middle of this marathon? I don't know, but that's cool.
Yeah, and it was fun because I remember like talking to you and you're like, okay, is there anything that I should be around for? And I'm like, yeah, no, if you come back in about 8 hours, we're gonna be wrestling, and you're just like, okay, I want to be there for that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I want to be there. Yeah, I want to, if not to record, then at least to watch because something's gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really fun because like I did the Kickstarter teaser and we put that out, and I don't think I didn't use any of the interviews from that in the actual final. None of them. Zero of them. You're shaking your head in disappointment because you noticed that.
Yes, yeah, I knew. I was like, I was because I was watching like you would be watching the premiere, be like, well, I kind of got this right, or I didn't get this right. I was also watching the premiere, like, how come he didn't use that? How come he didn't use that? How come he didn't use that? That was a good shot that didn't get used, but.
I think I used like almost every B-roll. Almost every B-roll got used.
And there was a lot. Like, so to break it down for people who may not know like the filming process, but it was about 8 to 9 hours a day of interviews and also B-roll every single day, leading from the beginning, from like a day or so before the marathon to sometimes even a day after the marathon. I know that last marathon I sat around and recorded a lot of the meeting stuff and stuff like that usually happens when the cameras go off.
Right.
So it was pretty intense.
Yeah, and it was like, was it 2 full marathons of recording for the final film?
Yes.
Yeah, two full.
It was the Kickstarter, like all the footage for the Kickstarter, and then it was the first marathon right after that, and the second marathon right after that. So it was basically a year process.
Right. And I mean, it all became very useful because I remember at the very end of the editing process in the movie, there were points where I'm like, I need more shots of couch, but there are no more shots of couch. I've ran out. I've used them all. And it was difficult because there'd be points where I'd be like, I really need like a shot of this person, like, because they're going to be talking and it needs to be relevant to them. And you did a good job because I know you mentioned it to me while you were shooting. You're like, once I do the interviews at the beginning of the day, I hear what people talked about and I try to get those later on in the day, B-roll of that. And that's pretty much what you do at all recordings, right?
Yeah, that's usually how I do all my projects of it's very much everything is in the interview process. Like people's eyes light up when they talk about what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
And like you provided a list and I mostly followed that question list to the letter. But if someone went on a tangent, like somebody like Jackson likes to talk and he likes to go kind of like in different places. Yeah. Like I'll follow him and then think about, hey, this is what Jackson said in the interview. I should probably get supporting footage for that because if I were editing it, I would also use that footage in the edit. So I just kind of made your life a little bit easier.
You did. The hardest part about the editing process was just the listening to every interview and cutting it up and sorting it to like, I basically ended up sorting it by questions basically. Yeah. And so like in the end when I was like, all right, so in this next part, we're talking about like going into our first hotel, I tried to find the few people and find the right sound bits to construct a narrative. And, it was my first time doing something like that. And I was like, there was moments during that I was like, man, I wish we set the Kickstarter for 50,000. And I was like, and I'd be like, hey, Esteban, you want to edit this too?
So I remember when you first mentioned the idea of the project, because I was going in not completely aware of what Zeldathon was.
Right.
And then you were like, hey, we want to interview everybody. And I was like, how many people are everybody? You're like, like 20, 30 interviews, something like that. And I was like, do I have to edit it? And you're like, no, we're going to get an editor. I'm like, great. I'll do all those interviews you want to do because I know that later on I don't have to sift through all of them to try to.
that was going to be your main hang up. You were like, if I have to edit this, the answer might be no.
I was like, we might have to change a couple of things here.
Yeah. We got to change the contract rate a little bit. But it all, worked out in the end. Like, obviously they're, looking back on the movie, especially watching that, I was like, there are points, you could do things better. I could have done more montages. I could have got more custom music because this one only has like a custom track at the beginning and the end. And it works fine. I think it's it's more just like the first third is mostly like, how the marathon came to be, and then the second bit is like some more deep dives into what the marathon is now, and then the finale is more of like the last third is just who are we, what have we learned, how have we grown into the future. And I think we covered all that, and there ended up seeing so much footage on the cutting room floor. Like I don't know, how much do you remember of like interview stuff that just completely wasn't in the documentary?
There's quite a bit, if I remember right. because a lot of people, each interview was about 30 minutes to an hour, if not more. So there was like no way all of it was getting into like a minute, an hour and a half. So there's quite a bit that's just kind of not used. That's also very good. It wasn't like not used because like it was bad. It's just not used because when you do projects like this, you kind of have to pick and choose. You have to sacrifice some things because it'll just explode to a 4-hour thing you'll never finish.
Right.
So yeah, I gotta imagine there's a lot of stuff you have extra just sitting there.
Yeah, and it's weird because like there's moments I was like I could put in like a whole scene about everybody's origin story.
Yeah.
And it just didn't fit in the narrative. It didn't make sense for chronological order. I don't think it's really relevant to people hearing about every single person individually.
Right.
I want to respond to Kampy.
He's messaging in the chat.
Yeah. Okay.
10 hours Zeldathon documentary director's cut. You don't want that.
No, you really don't. Like, honestly, I don't think if anybody was like, can we get a director's cut of the movie? Hey, there's Kampy. What's up, Kampy?
Hey, what's up?
What's up?
Welcome.
Yeah.
I was pointing down to you because you're below me.
You're next to me.
Gotcha.
What's
up? I was talking about how much like footage we have extra, and people were talking about like a 10-hour version, or even a director's cut, even though I technically was a director or whatever. Like that'll never happen, mostly because the project file for Money Making Game, I don't think I could open it again if I tried. That thing got so complicated and such a mess, and it's literally up like loads like terabytes now of footage.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember I had to fix one thing in the credits. Zach wanted his middle name, and I had to do that render before I left for Zeldathon, so he wanted his middle name in the credits. So I had to load up this project file, and my computer was just melting, and I just so I could fix Zach Aeneas Teep instead of just Zach Teep, and I'm like, I can't believe it.
What have you done to me?
His footage even get much in the movie. He got like a couple interviews in the final film because every time you would ask him a question, Esteban, he would make it a philosophical discussion. I was like, it doesn't work. There's no way this will fit in ever.
I think I specifically remember that interview, and I was like, I have no idea how this is going to get cut into the final product. But
dude, he just talks. Oh my! I love Zach. That man just talks, and he makes the weirdest things try to connect, and then you listen to it, and you're like, that made no sense, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
When we watch the blooper reel, I have a section just for Zach starting to tell stories. Like you're asking him like what makes Zeldathon different, and he's like, if you walked into any house in America, and it's like,
that's it, that was the one.
Yeah, and it's like no, Zach, just tell us what's different. We don't need to hear but at the end of the day, when I was going through the Zach interviews, of all the stuff, I found a few gems in the rough a few times.
Oh my gosh.
I was also surprised by I know a lot of people were nervous about being on camera because this is their first time. A lot of people's first time being interviewed, especially like those interviews were pretty intense. Like not only usually when you do an interview, it's kind of secluded or like in a private area, where a lot of these were done. Like you could see the couch in most of these interviews. Like your friends are behind you, and even though there's a lot of noise going on, they probably can hear what you're saying. So most of Kampy chagrin, who's interviewed got interviewed like 14 times.
So
loud. But I was very impressed by how well people conducted themselves in interviews and were able to get what they wanted to say out, because that's usually the toughest part, especially with people who are like experienced with that stuff. So that was really impressive.
Yeah, and there were a few like superstars that I had to purposefully like tell myself while I was editing, I'm like, I can't put them in too much. Like obviously I wanted to limit me to like as much into the origin story and the finale as possible. I wanted everybody else to tell like the middle story, but like Ganon, everything he said, I could have made this the Ganon documentary. Cause he wore a suit too, so I was like, he was ready, but I had to say no, I can't do it. So yeah, I mean, I don't even think I was a great interview, but Kampy, your interview was really fun just because you were in front of the musicians the entire time.
Gosh. I was like,
that was rough.
Super tired already, and then like just having to turn around every 5 minutes to listen to Jackson honking. I'm like, dude, Sick. Let's get this done.
Now I guess I gotta ask Kampy a couple questions, because you are one of my closest friends, and so you experienced the world of this documentary being edited from the perspective of me talking to you at 4 a.m. after editing all night. What do you think? Now, this was your first time watching it in full, by the way.
Yeah.
What did you think? How was this whole process?
So it went really well. Like Esteban did a fantastic job. Like I've watched a lot of Esteban stuff before, and especially when you said you were going with Esteban, I was like, okay, sick, super glad. Everything was shot really well, and you did such a fantastic job. I knew going into it, like you were excited, but I knew you were gonna hate it. I knew you were gonna hate the process, and I was warning you. I was like, hey, dude, maybe we need to get some more money. And you're like, I got this, dude. And then it started happening, and he's like, this sucks so much. And then at that same time, we had work, and he was just so stressed. He's like, I hate this documentary. He said it a couple times to me. I'm like, dang, dude.
I love the end product, and the process. The process was the problem.
Yeah, no, it was. I'm proud of him for doing it, but there was many nights where I doubted it was going to get finished for a while, just because of.
Oh, it was going to come out no matter what.
I did expect a call at some point, like 3 months before it was supposed to premiere. But like, hey, can you cut the section for me real close, man? I'm losing my wits here. I did expect that, but it never came, and then it premiered, and I was like, wow, he made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was tempted. I will say I was tempted a few times, but like, no, Esteban, he had his work description and he did his work. He did it excellently. Now I have to do my work excellently.
I did have a couple of discussions with some of the attendees, and I was like, I don't know if he's gonna be able to finish it in time. I was getting worried. I was sitting on the sidelines, like, I don't know, maybe I should reach out and be like, hey, I can edit a section if you need me to.
Yeah, no, I'm proud of like the work he did. Like, did a great job, and he stuck to it. Like, I was shocked he got it through. MC has this habit of being the biggest dreamer I've ever met, where he wants to try to do everything, and then he like just burns himself out. And the fact that he was able to accomplish this was just incredible to me. But he burned out from video production and hated it.
Oh no!
After.
I only started doing Adobe Premiere again like this past week. It's been a solid year. Yeah, it's been a year, like literally a year.
Yeah, like he was completely done. I felt bad even asking for like work related stuff from him. Just because like he was so he needed to be away from his computer and all that stuff. So I was proud of him, still am, for getting it completed.
Yeah, and it was, it was worth it. It was absolutely worth it. And again, like the thing is like, it's easy to think like we could think about like, hey, what if we passed on all this footage to Esteban, or we hired a different like a professional editor, and what would happen? How long would it take? How much money would it cost? What would it have the same feel? Because the one benefit of me editing, and it can also be a negative, is that I do know the story very thoroughly, so I know like with some people like are mixed in their interviews of like the sequence events, I do know them, so I can fix the storyline as I need. But audio editing sucks, Esteban.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's a nightmare. It's editing audio is the hardest thing in the world, and it's the first thing that people will notice if it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean more than anything, like I wanted to cut out as many ums and uhs as I can, but it's hard. It's and you have people who will stop for a long period and cutting that out, and it like the pitch of their voice will go up, and it's like the most obvious cut in the world. And I'm like, this sucks. And I ended up like mixing two people's like telling of the story in logical ways, and it sucks.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I just had a project for my day job doing that, where it was like, man, if anybody had a really close listen to this, it sounds like Max Headroom just jumping all over the place.
Oh my gosh.
And I had a very special rule for myself during this documentary. The only person allowed to say content in the final film was Rom Scout. Everybody else doesn't have enough qualifications to say the word content.
Rom made me laugh because he was like, why am I getting interviewed? I'm like, I don't know, bro, but like they want you in front of the camera, so let's talk.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, hey, you know what he did get in the final film? He got the thing right before the bar graph slide came up, and I was like, yeah, you get the stats, Rom Scout. You're the stats man. No, it was good though. It was good. So a lot of people have asked, when's the second documentary, Esteban? Would you
I
like
don't
to
know
answer that?
when we do the Kickstarter again.
Oh
Let's
my
go.
God. Yeah, see that is the question is Kampy's face.
Okay, we could do a documentary again later. I'd rather. There's so many other projects I want to do with Zeldathon to make us bigger. So that second documentary is better than the metagame documentary that just came out. So
That's a lot of pressure.
that. I mean,
Okay.
the first 3 episodes of that were good. The last ones,
I wasn't gonna say anything.
the first 3 were fire, but those last ones are kind of. I feel like you wouldn't have made those decisions.
Man, this is gonna get clipped for our Smash Brothers, and I'm gonna have so many people in my mentions right now.
Let's talk about something different. Actually, let's talk about So Esteban, I know I never actually asked you about this before, but like I think if we did like something again like involving your work at Zeldathon, it would be more fun to do stuff like short form, like kind of like what the GDQ does, but maybe even of a lesser scale. Because I just have some of that B-roll you got. I have been very strict about not using it for marathon purposes. I wanted it to be for the documentary, but at the same time, I'm looking at it, I'm like, man,
you should use it for marathon purposes. Like,
yeah, it's starting to feel like maybe we should.
even just like background stuff, like for a deck or something like that. Like, there's no reason not to use it.
Exactly.
I used to be of that like mind too, of like, well, I can't ever touch this footage again. And now since like quarantine hit, I was like, well, I can't film anymore. So like, all this B-roll from my last 3 projects are gonna be my next 10. Just throw it in there.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, and it'd be cool if when you like. Obviously, actually, we can talk about it. So you came to the marathon as a hired hand to work on this documentary, and then you came back. And I mean, I was really happy, and I knew you made a lot of friends, but I was also like, oh, Esteban's coming, yay! Like I was excited, because I was excited that you got to form friends. But what was your experience like in the world? If I was interviewing you now for Money Making Game, what was your experience coming into Zeldathon?
It's interesting because like it's very different than any other event I've ever been to, in the fact that like it is a job and it is stressful. Like when you're there to work, but you guys take really good care into like community stuff, like making sure that everybody is okay. There's like a game room and all this kind of stuff where like people can just kind of get away from the marathon and relax, but still bond and stuff like that. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's what brought me back outside of the friends that I had made and stuff like that and that I wanted to see. And it was just fun. Like it's a bit more relaxed and people are having fun with the games. They're like not too worried about like, I've got to hit this time or I've got to do this thing. And I think that gets to like, I love GDQ, but I also I like to enjoy the games as well and the outside stuff that the games bring and the community it brings. So I think and it's funny because like usually these 2 events are like back to back. So I get a best of both worlds where like I'll go to Zeldathon, hang out, and like Kampy knows, I'll see him at GDQ as well. And I'll run around stressed as hell at GDQ trying to get all these interviews done. But also enjoy myself because that kind of environment is a pressure cooker and I like being in it. So it's nice to have a balance between these 2 kind of events that I do, and that's part of why I keep coming back. And the friends are the other. Yeah.
You were gonna say something, Kampy?
Oh, I was gonna say, seeing Esteban at GDQ, like we say, hey, what's up? Like every couple of minutes, or we'll be at the like the fighting game area, just watching Twinkle Star Sprites and some shit. And he's like, all right, gotta go to a hotel room and interview about some game. Cool, see ya.
I've got to edit for the next 7 hours. I'll be back at 4:00 in the morning to shoot Super High Glide.
The last GDQ location, the Florida one, what was your thoughts on that?
I loved it.
Oh, dude, okay, thank you. I loved it too. It's so good.
I begged them. I was like, just come back. Just always come back. Don't like. I know they have. I forget. It was like Virginia-ish area. That was like Washington D.C., Virginia-ish area. Usually in December, but like being like not like the problem with that was like being stuck indoors all times and it was cold. Like there's nowhere to go. With Florida, like City Walk was like across the street, stuff like that. You could kind of go away, or you could just like take a walk outside the venue without wearing 7 layers.
Dude, so
why are you adding Zeldathon like this? The winter Zeldathons are so awful, especially because we don't like. And obviously, we're not going to dox ourselves too much here, but there's not like a good walking like path. That road is not good for walking that we're on at all.
You have to risk a traffic hazard every time you want to go anywhere.
Yeah, or to like the one place you can go, which is Sheets.
Yes.
Sure.
There are a few other places, but they're a little bit.
I do the drives. I just go, hey, someone want to take a drive, and they're like, heck
And I'm
yeah.
already in your car before you even
You
finish.
really are. You jump in so fast. Like,
You
I
roll
start
down the
walking-
window to say yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
like the funniest thing is like I'll start walking to the door, and MC's just like, I'm getting my coat, and I'm like, oh, okay.
I don't even know where you're going. You're like, well, I was just gonna go home and take a shower. I'm like, I'm coming. I'm going.
But yeah, like seeing you seeing like the contrast from both events, like, and just kind of you explaining to like, because I've been to a lot of events like GDQ, I've been to the Evo, and that's like even more stressful just because of just there's so much going on. And whereas like GDQ, there's like the main stage, just and you can film that, but doing Evo, I just can't even imagine like the non-stop you're running around.
Yeah, Evo's a nightmare. I love Evo, but it's a nightmare. Like that's probably the most intense event of the year I do, where it's like 6 days of 18-hour days where I don't stop moving, and I'm doing like 5 different projects. I think, and then one Evo, I worked for 7 or 6 different clients in that weekend.
Wow.
All at the same time. Yeah, I was a zombie. I couldn't move for like a day or two after that.
Jeez.
So it's nice to have something like Zeldathon where like I can. It's still demanding work when I was doing the documentary, but there are still times to like actually be human and talk to people. It's very much appreciated.
And so like now with you like coming back in, you've been obviously doing a couple games and stuff, and so what do you have coming for us for side quests, just to kind of transition us a little bit here?
So side quest is a little interesting because I'm not doing too much like on camera stuff. I don't think I'm doing any on camera stuff. So I'm going to be playing a little bit of a concert infuser. I don't know if any people have heard of it, but it's like the new game from Harmonix. It's like a DJ mixing game. I'm going to be showing people how it works, and also just doing a couple of jam sessions on it, just hanging out, stuff like that. Enjoy that one because I don't think that's going to stay on the channel for very long. Thanks, Twitch. But I'm also going to be producing a game of Among Us with a bunch of cool folks from the Zeldathon team, including MC.
Yeah, I'm ready to be. I want to have like a pre Among Us meeting where I say, all right, guys, we're going to be on camera and we're going to need to do a good job, but let's all just calm our characters down a little bit. we need to temper ourselves just this much to get through this segment with our sanity.
Yeah, I'm really excited because like I remember the early days of Among Us, and like they were like, "Oh, we're having fun, it's good." And now like I watch like Jiggy's channel and like Catherine be like, "I'm gonna murder him in electrical," and she does. Like no hesitation anymore. There's like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's just like he doesn't even get like 2 words out and he's already murdered somewhere. So I'm super excited to see how this game's gonna go.
It's gonna be very exciting. Kampy, while we have you here, and since we're kind of coming up at a good end point here for interview chat time, what are you doing during side quest?
So I'm helping out. I was gonna run a game, but I had to drop out just because work and direct relief has just been insane this year. Taken on a lot of projects to assist with broadcasters, and this past like yesterday I ended up at another event. So kind of glad I took a step back, but I'll be doing donation reading for Supersonic and Peachy. Very excited for Peachy's running Donkey Kong Country 2. So I'll be the donation reader on that.
Well, actually, are you going to be on my segment? I think I was going to have Junie read donations or something. I don't know. I haven't talked to her too much.
If anyone wants me on their segment, just let me know before the day it happens. And then Connor's doing a speed run of all events mode in Melee. And that's going to be exciting. So I'm just going to be a shitter the entire time to him. And it's funny because a lot of people know oh you can't use the C stick, but on Slippy you can use the C stick. So I'm actually forcing him to use the original version and just like messing him up the entire time. So I'm excited for that run.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited in general for event mode because event mode's sick.
Yeah, he's doing really cool incentives where people get to donate to pick bad characters for him to try to do it, and he's been practicing and he's been getting really upset at Event 51, so please donate to have like really bad characters.
Oops, all Kirby. It just nod.
Like do Zelda or something like that. He gets so mad. He was so tilted.
Do you restrict him from not being able to switch into Sheik?
Yeah. Well, like when whoever the donation, like whatever, like I'll just he asks, like he'll be on Discord with me and he'll just ask like what character, and I'll say Ness, he's like, "You hate me," and I'm like, "Yeah."
You know someone's gonna do it too, so you
Yeah, no,
better
it's
be
fine.
ready.
Yeah, I just gotta choose all the bad characters. And I said like Big Link, and he's like, "Dude, come on." I'm like,
Big
"It's
Link.
it's a Zelda-thon," and he's like, "You're right."
You better be ready.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Anything you two want to chat about before we go? I'm going to give everybody at home the blooper reel, which I've actually never put up publicly before.
I miss everybody. I can't wait to be back in one place, safe and sound. Because I also still want to run Devil May Cry 5, especially now that Virtual's out. And now Kampy has been. I've been posting clips of my practice, and Kampy has been losing his mind on Twitter. I'm hoping that whenever that is, hopefully sooner than later, I can put together something really cool and we can start this show in style.
Perfect. Anything for you, Kampy?
I just want to say I'm really proud of the community and the team for sticking with us in this like crazy transition that we've been doing. So thank you. I've joined this community like 8 years ago, so it's just been insane to see and how much we've come together during this pretty crazy time. So I want to thank everyone, including MC, for being a great leader. And then the last thing is go check out Esteban's channel and all of the stuff he's doing. Like, go check him out. He did a documentary on Slippy. Like, which was fantastic. Please,
God, that was in the works for years. I remember like a little bit inside baseball on that one, but like Fizzy hit me up and was like, "Hey, you think rollback netcode could work in Melee?" I was like, "Hey, talk to this dude." And here we go. But yeah, I have a channel over on about fighting games and all kinds of cool stuff. I even did like a speedrunning thing on the 2-player, 1-controller blindfolded punch-out run with Sinister and Zallard one. But it's over at Hold Back to Block on YouTube. All my stuff is free, and there's a Patreon if you want to go support it. But just go
support his Patreon.
Yes, please support the Esteban.
Support the Patreon.
So I won't complain. But side quest first.
Yeah, check them out.
Don't worry, I was pimping the documentary the entire time during the I was like, I should probably mention the donations, but at the same time. Oh, also, apparently, flash news here in from Legos Jedi. The schedule is now up on the website. So if you want to take a look at it, zeldathon.net/schedule is now live.
Damn.
Cool. All right. Well, I will say bye to you two, and I will talk to the audience real quick.
All right. Peace. Bye-bye. I can't find my end call button. There it is.
Oh, boy. Now I'm frozen.